start recording. So the session is being recorded and you'll be able to refer back to it and all of the other sessions on the website. And then just remember to please keep yourself muted during the presentation unless directed otherwise. We encourage you to use the chat for questions or comments. And now I would like to introduce you to Allie Pierce, our presenter this morning. Allie is the Assistant Director of Healthy Campus Initiatives, a health promotion department within the Wellness Center at Rowan University. She oversees all operations and outreach of the department, including supervising undergraduate and graduate interns. She's the co-chair of the Sexual Violence Prevention Task Force, a certified Green Dot, and etc. trainer on bystander intervention and certified and QPR. In addition to her work with college student population, Ms. Pierce has been the project director on several concurrent grants, including the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, funded Garrett Lee Smith Suicide Prevention Grant, the New Jersey Annual College Summit on Underage Drinking Prevention, and the New Jersey Social Norms Project, where she served as a main technical assistant for over 65 middle and high schools using social norms theory to reduce substance use and bullying. So that's a little bit about Allie. So I'm going to go on ahead and pass it over to her.
Great, thank you so much, Kristen. That sounds so impressive, so I get really excited to hear that, so I appreciate it. So anyway, good morning. My name is Allie Pierce. This is an interactive presentation, hooray, so everybody will have the opportunity to put things in the chat if they feel more comfortable or to unmute themselves. We have a small intimate group, so we'll be able to have some really good conversations. So I'm pretty excited about that. All right. So one of the things that we talk about in Rowan Thrive is how do we address our well-being in several different dimensions, physical, social, emotional, community, purpose, and financial. And I'm sure during the course of the Health and Wellness Expo, you've had the opportunity to hear from different people addressing different kinds of well-being. So one thing that kind of crosses a lot of them is this idea of gratitude. And sometimes it's something that I actually struggle with. I can be grateful for the things that I have in my life, but feel a certain way about am I bragging? Am I discounting others if I'm feeling grateful for something? And the thing that's taken me quite some time to learn is that I can do both. I can have more than one feeling at the same time. So like I said, this is going to be an interactive thing so that we can all kind of share what works for us. So we talked about this a little bit, it's kind of how does this tie into our well-being? And again, please feel free to interrupt me or put anything in the chat. So we know that it can make us happier to reflect on things going well. And that's something that we sort of need to do right now. There's a lot of things that are not going well. So being able to take the small wins and say okay, I'm grateful for the fact that, I could do this presentation from home because there's no way I was going to actually make it into the office by 9 o'clock this morning. It's just not going to happen, so I can be happy about that and reflect on that and be grateful for the flexibility and for the flexibility of Campus Rec to allow me to do this from home. It makes us feel good to tell somebody else we appreciate them. We recently did Take Back the Night. That is our annual sexual assault awareness event. And in normal times, with all the air quotes, we have between 200 and 300 people that kind of go through the Student Center pit and talk about sexual assault and sexual violence and learn about it, which is an incredible undertaking, not only for HCI, but for the Student Center as well. So every year at the end of it, I send a long letter to anyone who's ever worked in the Student Center talking about how much I really appreciate that this is an event that has a lot of different moving parts and how well they do. Because it makes me feel good to say that, and from their point of view, if you're on the other side of it anyway, sometimes we only get the negative nuggets, here's everything that went wrong. So it feels good to be able to say, here's all the things that went right. Here's all the things that I'm super appreciative for in this event. It also helps us find meaning in our work, in different things we talk about, maybe the difference between a job and a career, and one is not better than the other. We say sometimes you need to follow your bliss and find your purpose, or whatever we found on Pinterest about that. Whatever it is we need, whatever our work is, whether that's something we're paid for or not paid for, finding meaning in it is important, whether that's in your job that you're getting a full-time salary for, or if you're doing something volunteer work, if you're doing something part-time, finding this meaning in it helps us with gratitude and helps our overall well-being. So you're going to find a journal, a piece of paper, a Post-it, a memory, something in your phone And this is going to be an interactive part. Think of, we'll go with five things that you have done in your life that you're like, damn, I did a good job, and think of things that maybe you're willing to share with our group today. So I've actually have my campus rec journal next to me, so thanks guys. So I'm going to write down 5 things that I'm really proud of, and I'm going to take a minute to do it as well. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes like, oh, what am I actually proud of? And it's like, oh yeah, I did do that really well. I'm kind of looking at this too, that meaningful moments can come in all sizes. Did you make a new friend? Did you figure out the secret to parking on campus? Guys, it's have a pandemic. That's the secret. That's all you got to do is have a global pandemic, and then you can park wherever you want. So whatever it is. Is there anybody who wants to share one or more of the items that are on their list, either unmuting or putting it in the chat? I'm down with whatever.
I'll share.
Awesome.
So one thing that I'm really proud of is I'm from Mississippi, and I packed up and moved all the way up here for grad school, and I left all my family behind. And so it was like a huge growth experience, but I'm really proud of myself for like finding the courage to do that. And I feel like doing it successfully. So yeah.
I like it. That's a huge deal. That's a big deal to pack up and move anywhere. I basically wanted an award when I moved 2 towns over when a couple of years ago when I bought a house, but like packing up anything and going on a brand new adventure is incredible. So congratulations. What else we got?
Okay, so I've basically had the same hairstyle since like high school, and I got a haircut yesterday, and I went with like something totally different.
Oh, that looks nice.
Thank you. I was like super nervous, and I was talking with the dude like I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I'm proud of that.
Absolutely. Hair is a really big part of our identity, so if it's like, okay, I know what Eric's hair is going to look like every time I see him, but changing that up does change something about your identity, and kind of how you perceive yourself. And that's a big deal, so congratulations. And your hair looks lovely.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to share? And then I'll share mine.
Mine, like joining group therapy.
Yeah.
Especially in like the pandemic, because like I think that's just way too like nerve-wracking at some points, but yeah.
That's incredible. Kind of going with therapy in the first place, saying like, hey, I'm gonna talk to other people about what's going on in my life, is scary in and of itself. And then I'm going to talk with other people, some of whom I may know, some of whom may be, peers or people that are roughly in my age group, can be really terrifying. But the nice thing about group therapy is that it is so effective for so many people for that reason. We run a group called SAS, our Stress and Anxiety Student Support Group, and every single person feels like they are the only one that is feeling stressed or anxious in college. I'm going to speak on behalf of the entire university and say that you are not the only person who has ever felt stressed or anxious in college, so that's a huge deal. Congrats. Anyone else? All right. So the thing that I am proud of in my reverse bucket list is the Student Mental Health Conference that we ran back in November. So we run it in person. This was the 3rd annual. And we had to completely do it differently. Usually it's like we have a keynote speaker and then all kinds of breakout sessions, and it's all run by students and the whole thing. One, I didn't have a graduate student in this past fall. And 2, hey, there's a pandemic, and we can't put a whole bunch of people in the student center in a variety of places. So we changed the whole format of it and did 16 TED Talks in a row, some in person, some virtual. It was raining, 3 laptops, and everybody showed up on time, and it went really well. So kind of looking at that, and I was like, good job, self, way to go. So it's okay to look back and be like, I am so proud of myself for joining therapy, getting a new haircut, packing up and moving, and doing part of my job exceptionally well. Especially in a pandemic. You're going to hear me say the word pandemic about 75 times during this presentation. And remember that doesn't lower the bar at all. It's not like, oh, well, I mean, it's a pandemic, I guess I got to do something else. It means that you're living through some major world thing, and that's the number 1 or number 2 stressor of everything else that's going on. So taking these moments to remember the things that we're doing well is awesome. All right. So what are some things that we are grateful for? So what's one easy thing that you're like, yeah, I'm super grateful for, that's kind of the thing that you're all right about? Like, I'm grateful that I am able to be in a house in a safe neighborhood. That's something I'm grateful for. We're grateful for Levi. So Levi is Dr. Joe's husband. So we're grateful for Dr. Joe's husband. Kristen is grateful for the sunshine. What are some other things that we are grateful for? Either in the chat or unmute. I'm cool with whatever. My health. Yep. Birds. I like the fact that I can text Dr. Joe a picture of a bird and say, what kind of bird is that? And she'll tell me. My dogs, my wife, peace. Also grateful for my dog. She's just kind of sitting over there, and we're just going to cross our fingers that she doesn't bark. Otis is Dr. Joe's dog. So we have a lot of people who are grateful for dogs for the obvious reasons. Morning coffee, again, for obvious reasons. So can we have conflicting attitudes or conflicting emotions about gratitude? So I'm looking at Eric's comment where he talked about my health, and we're all very grateful for our health. Conversations that I've had with students in the past have been like, how can I be grateful that in a pandemic, maybe I'm healthy and my family's healthy and people I know are healthy, but I'm still sad about graduation. How can we have kind of conflicting emotions where we can both be grateful for one thing and sad about another thing? Are there any other examples that we could think of where we're really, really grateful that we have something, even if it means that somebody else doesn't? And how does that make us feel?
So I do a lot of domestic violence work in my role in intimate partner violence, and I'm really close to that particular kind of violence. And I have tried to ensure that in my personal life with my spouse that we maintain a really strong, healthy relationship, strong boundaries, really open communication, and anytime there's slight maybe problematic behavior that's not intentional, right? That just kind of comes with the territory when you spend all your time with somebody, that we kind of nip it in the bud and that we talk about it and work through it. And I hold a lot of heaviness in my heart for folks who aren't able to experience that kind of healthy, loving relationships with somebody.
Yeah, if we're working in fields where we kind of see a lot of the bad, a lot of the dark, and some of us are fields where we see people sort of on the worst days of their life, it can feel both, grateful and humbling to say like, okay, here's something in my life that's going really well that I can be grateful for. But if you're like me, sometimes you feel a little bit bad about it, and knowing that one doesn't impact the other, your relationship doesn't impact somebody else's, kind of in your work and in your field. So kind of my point in all of that is, again, it is a normal human being thing to have conflicting emotions about everything in the world, including gratitude. And it's okay to be feeling both ways about it. As of right this very second, my dog is poking her nose at my butt, so I'm both grateful that I have an adorable dog and also a little bit annoyed, like, seriously, chill out, dog. So in other ways, shapes, and forms, regardless if we're talking about gratitude or not, how do we feel conflicting emotions? What are conflicting emotions? Give me an example of what conflicting emotions might be. Looking in the chat. Guilt, that's a really good example, so I might be feeling guilty that I have something that somebody else does, or that something worked out in my favor. I use the phrase take the win a lot. Sometimes if something just happens to work out in my favor, and especially if I didn't even earn it, then I might feel a little bit guilty, happiness in a moment, but overall sadness. Kristen, could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like what would an example of that be? Whether it's personal life or just in general?
I guess I guess I could use like the example of moving for me for this. So I was really happy when I got accepted to Rowan, but I was overall sad that I would be leaving like what I was used to in my family. So it's like, and you feel that sadness for a while, but it's like, I'm really happy in this moment, but I'm also really more so sad, and the sadness stays a little bit longer.
Yeah, and that's a really good example. You can kind of look back and say, cool, this is helping me with my career goals. It's helping me in my personal development. It's helping you, like all kinds of reasons why moving for graduate school can be a good thing. But also kind of saying like, but I like my family. I like my friends. I like the coffee shop down the street from where I live, and all of those other kinds of things. So that's a really good way to put conflicting emotions. And then kind of deciding like, all right, well, which way am I going to leap? Am I going to stay home, and that's a perfectly legit decision, or am I going to go because I think that this might work out better for me? So a lot of this is weighing kind of conflicting options as well. I like it.
I guess like spinning off of that too, you could go like for a more general, like people who suffer depression, like if the sunshine comes out, they could be happy in the moment, but like still be really struggling with that heaviness too. So I guess just like to add a general example of what I meant to.
Yeah, for sure. So you can take the wins in happy moments. I like the sunshine. I like when the Eagles win. I like when when the dishwasher is emptied, so I'm looking at my dishes in the sink, you can kind of take all of those wins, and then still be like, but there's so many other things going on. And that's something that sometimes we struggle with when we talk about mental health. It's like, the quintessential, well, what could you possibly be sad about? You have all these good things going on in your life. What could possibly be going wrong for you that you're upset about? Well, a lot of things, and that's an entirely separate presentation, but I think that that's a really good point to talk about, Kristen, is that all of that can play straight into mental health, so I appreciate that. So we're not going to have you talk to your neighbor because your neighbor is probably not physically located near you. So this idea of reframing, what is reframing? What do we think it might be? Either unmuting or into the chat. And I swear that this slide will make sense about socks and car accidents, I promise.
Like rewording a thought, or like I would say like a thought or sentence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like it. So we're kind of rewording a thought, a sentence. I like it. Dr. Joe put, it's raining, but raining is fuel for the earth. In a bad situation, it could be kind of finding the silver lining in something, so kind of looking at things that were like, I don't really like the rain, but rain's pretty important. In a bad situation, it could be finding the silver lining. It's scary to move from Mississippi, but I'm going on to bigger career goals, or I'm going on to bigger personal goals. So if we're kind of looking at this idea of getting socks at Christmas, I am of the age where I now enjoy getting socks at Christmas. I think that happens at like 30, but I was like, yay, socks, because the running socks that I buy are really expensive. So Christmas is coming, socks is what I want. So on one hand, you can kind of look at it and be like, socks are kind of boring. It's not really, exciting. The flip side of that is like, well, I mean, I needed socks, when we had this conversation with some of the interns, she had, recently gotten into a car accident, and she's fine. Everybody's okay. But it really kind of shook her, so we talked about kind of even reframing this idea of this car accident. Number one, it sucked. Car accidents are terrible. Nobody likes to be physically hurt, shaken up, any of those things, so as she was kind of sitting there and reframing it, after much discussion, she was like, I got to spend more time with friends and people who care about me, because she didn't have the car. It also reframed this idea of her having to ask for help. I hate asking for help. I am the worst at asking for help. So for her, she needed to ask for help to physically get places. Could you drive me to work? Could you drive me here? Because Ubers are really expensive, and you can't just do that every time you got to go someplace. So she's like, okay, me, reframing the car accident doesn't mean that I'm feeling grateful for it. It doesn't change what actually happened. It means, okay, here's the thing that happened. I can't change it. So let me reframe and kind of look at whatever tiny little nugget of okayness might be in there. So if we're looking like, hey, there's a global pandemic, how can we kind of reframe some of these things? Well, our dogs are having the best year of their life, because they get to spend all kinds of time. I can park on campus. I'm going to go on campus at 10:30 in the morning today. I'm going to be able to park. It's amazing, and that doesn't mean that you want this. That doesn't mean that you're hoping for more pandemic, but it means that given the fact of here's where you are, this is where we're at, and how you can kind of look at that bright side. So we talked about kind of something you could reframe or look at a different way. Could be the rain. It could be getting a grade on a test and say like, all right, well, I clearly messed this up, but now I know what I need to study, or now I know the part that I'm missing, or the information I'm not really retaining. All right. So gratitude when things, losing a job. I saw that Eric just put that in the chat. You can kind of reframe something and be like, this blows, really, saying, okay, being angry about it, being sad about it, are all very valid feelings, and they're not necessarily going to change what happened. So the only option you really have is moving forward, and kind of even in that, it's not saying don't be mad, don't be sad, don't be any of this, because we go back to having all kinds of conflicting emotions with that. And being able to talk about like, all right, I'm going to feel all my feels, and then being able to move forward. So for sure. So when things don't go so well, and this is kind of that same idea of like reframing from things that aren't going well. So how do we practice gratitude when something fails? So what's something that we've done where we've learned to look on the bright side, or corollary, what's something that didn't go the way you expected, and what did you learn? So I'll give you an example that I had. So in college, I took a semester off. There's some family things going on in my life. I actually was able to come to Rowan for a semester. If you had asked 21-year-old me, 21, yeah. If you had asked 21-year-old me, I thought this was over. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to graduate from college if I take a semester off. Like, this is it. I just spent all this money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did not go the way that I expected. What I learned from that was, well, I made it into a job. So, I mean, that was kind of cool. I've been at Rowan for about 14 years now. And I also learned that you can be really resilient when things don't go the way that you expected them to. So what are some other things that we have learned, or that we can look back on and reflect and say, here's the lesson that I learned. Is there anything that we're able to look back on? And put our little thank you next in there, because sometimes we think about that with relationships. I think that that's actually a really good song about gratitude. You're kind of looking back and saying, okay, here's all of these things that I learned from relationships that didn't work out. And now I'm going to move on. So what are some things that we have learned when things didn't work out for us? Let's reflect on stuff. Sometimes it's easier to think about things that happened a lot longer ago.
All right, I got you. I won't leave you hanging. So I think within my role, like planning for events and things, you really have to like take the things that fail and like twist them and turn them so that you are then able to succeed next. So I guess for me, like coming into this role, when we were planning for Women on Weights, the first semester that I did it just completely failed, because we just opened it up for free. People signed up. We had like 25 people sign up, and then like 3 of them actually show up. And it was really frustrating. And it's like, yeah, of course, like it's a small win that at least those 3 people showed up. But when you have 25 people signed up, you want all of them to be there. So I just kind of like took that as like, what could I have done better, and what could I have done to hold people accountable to get them there? So then the next semester it's like, okay, well, let's charge $10, but give them a free t-shirt. So now it's kind of like you have incentive, and we actually, all the people who signed up came, because I've also found with college students that if they're paying for something, they're going to get their money's worth out of it. So, it's taking like this, like the issues, but then reframing it to where it's like, okay, well, what could I have done better to get the numbers that I wanted to?
That is not just college students. In previous lives, I did a lot of conference planning. The free conferences would have about a 20% no-show rate. When we started charging like $10 and providing lunch for free, like you just paid for lunch, that's all that happened. But for a lot of professional conferences, that $10 has to go through a purchase order. That $10, somebody has to sign off on it, which means that somebody wants verification they actually went there. So that 20% no-show rate dropped to like 5. But I mean, and that's kind of a good way to reframe something and say, okay, well, what is it that we could do to improve the, more people attending an event, or at least people that signed up for attending an event, and Women on Weights is a great example of that. We, in HCI, we have like this big kind of spreadsheet of all of our events, and we just have like a comment section afterwards. So if something went exceptionally well, what did we do? If something did not go well at all, we kind of put notes in there. Is there something that we could have changed? And for oftentimes, honestly, when we were doing Free Condom Friday in person, if it rained, our numbers were terrible. I cannot control the rain, but if I'm wondering why these numbers are down, oh, it rained, so there's a little bit of kind of going on with that. So you can look back in that and say, okay, like, this was incredibly frustrating that 3 people showed up to Women on Weights. What did I learn? I learned that it's okay to be frustrated, that that's a normal human emotion to have, and that's fine. What did we learn about it? One, you can deal with frustration. You can kind of sit with that for a minute, and that you are resilient for dealing with that frustration. And also, like, all right, people like to do things when there's a little bit of money behind it. It's why you tend to go to something that you pay for versus something that's free. So having the idea of being like, okay, what am I meant to learn in this? Am I meant to learn to be resilient? Am I meant to learn how else that we can plan for different things? So this idea of expressing gratitude towards others, I love Soul Pancake. I have not gotten over my love of Soul Pancake. I will always love Soul Pancake. And so for this, the idea, sometimes it feels weird to go up to someone and be like, hey, I really appreciate you. Because sometimes it feels kind of funky for us. And even if you're not good at receiving compliments like me, sometimes it's kind of this weird thing of like, well, what do you want? Why are you telling me this? And if we're able to sort of get past that, like, it's really good stuff, So it worked when Kristen and I tested this earlier. Who knows if it's going to work again? But we're just gonna wing it. So the only person I can see right now is Kristen. So give me a thumbs up, thumbs down if you can hear the sound.
Shut up.
What? Wait.
Oh, he's gonna be so embarrassed.
What makes you happy? Having fun? Hanging out with friends? Delicious food? Making money? Well, consider this. Psychologists have scientifically proven that one of the greatest contributing factors to overall happiness in your life is how much gratitude you show. Yeah? Think about that. Go ahead and marinate on it for a second. You can thank me later if you want. It'll make you feel better according to this study. You go ahead and click on it and read it if you want. Or you can keep watching because we read it and we thought it might be fun to test out for ourselves. We gathered a selection of volunteers to act as our subjects. First, we gave them a test. They didn't know what we were looking for, but it gave us a pretty good idea of their current level of happiness. We asked them to close their eyes and think of somebody who was really influential in their life, somebody who did something really amazing or important for them. We had them write down as much as they could about why this person was so important. Now, a lot of them thought at this point the experiment was over, until we really put them on the spot and tried to get them to call that person and read what they wrote about them. Thank you, Jessica. We're going to have you call your mother. So who is that right person for you?
Person is my sister, Erica.
We're going to give Erica a call.
Okay.
Who'd you end up picking?
Friend of mine, Craig Ains. Her name is Dora.
My college accounting instructor.
Really? Mm-hmm. Is this somebody you're still in touch with today?
No, I'm assuming that he's passed on.
That's a shame.
To the great beyond.
You up for it?
Yes.
What would you say if we called up Dora?
Oh, we can try, but she lives in Britain.
In Britain?
Oh, no, number by heart, dude. This is awful.
That's fine. I don't know my mom's number by heart.
If it's true that those who are going on are looking down on us, maybe he read my chicken scratch.
Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, how you doing? You got a second? Where you at, in the hotel?
I am. I'm in the hotel. You scared me when you asked if I had a second. Something's wrong.
No, I'm on this little TV show, and they told me to talk about the person that influenced me the most, and I picked you, and they're making me call. They're making me call you.
Oh, wonderful!
Hi, you've reached Craig. I'm not here right now.
At the tone, please record your message.
Oh, come on.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Erica, it's me.
All right, so I got to read you this paragraph. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, sweetheart.
All right. The person that influenced me the most would be my mother, Marlo Dawson. She is a single mother of 2. She is a very hard worker and dedicated to her family.
Hey, Craig, this is Loie. This is going to be a funny little voicemail, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm so sorry for calling you at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to read this to you, okay? And you can't say anything, or I don't know. You can respond, but I probably will just keep going. Okay?
Is everything okay?
Yes, but I have to read this out loud to you.
The person who has had the biggest impact on my life outside of Jesus Christ, who is responsible for my existence, was my college accounting instructor. He had a joy and enthusiasm for his job like no other teacher I have ever known.
I love her to death, and she keeps me going with positive talk. She is a woman that knows what she wants and won't give up until it is achieved.
Oh, something. I don't know what. I'm about to cry because that's so beautiful. I have to say that's just wonderful.
I first met Craig on an independent feature film set in Whitefish, Montana. I recently have been sending Craig a lot of positive thoughts as he suffered a series of health problems. Despite his medical problems, he's continued to work and take pleasure in the small things in life, like sitting quietly with his wife Janine on the porch. Erica is my older sister and my best friend. Sometimes it even feels like we are twins. She's my #1 fan and my #1 supporter. She makes me happy because despite all my mistakes and my decisions, she still loves me no matter what. Your friendship is everything. And you are one of the most important person in my life. Even when she has a kid and many children, I will love her more than her kids. Okay, maybe not. I will never forget when she flew 3,000 miles at the drop of a phone call to save me from a breakup.
I'm being blessed by having a son like you. I love you.
Bye.
Why did you do that to me?
I don't know, because they made me do it. Thank you for picking up. Bye, sweetie. And then they're like, here, you're going to write this letter. And then I wrote like this whole long ass letter, which, I like don't write. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, guess what? Now we're going to call her and you're going to read her this letter. And I was like, what the
Before we let them go, we gave our subjects one more happiness test. Now, we mixed up and rephrased the questions so they didn't know they were taking the same test twice. For those who took the time to actually write something down but couldn't make the phone call for whatever reason, we saw happiness increase between 2 and 4%. Good, but not exactly mind-blowing. Now, for those who actually picked up the phone and personally expressed their gratitude, we saw increases between 4 and 19%. So either way, expressing your gratitude will make you a happier person. But you want to know something really interesting? The person who experienced the biggest jump in happiness was the least happy person who walked in the door. What does that mean? That means if you're having a particularly tough time, trying this out will more likely have a greater impact on you. Trust me, I'm in a lab coat. In fact, while you're at it, film it and upload it to us, and we'll do something awesome with it. I'm Julian, and this has been The Science of Happiness.
Open cake, subscribe.
I love soul pancake. What are some of our thoughts? Some of our first reactions after seeing that.
I guess it makes me think about, the people who mean the most to me and I'm grateful for.
Yeah. Because sometimes we almost take that for granted, right? It's like, oh, I know that my people, whoever they are, they know how much they mean to me. And sometimes it's like, well, maybe they don't. We have a couple people who are about to cry. So Dr. Joe, you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a handwritten note, like a handwritten thank you note. So I was immediately flooded with, oh my gosh, I have so many people that I need to send notes out to. And also, like, I don't know. It's not even 10 a.m., Allie. And you got me on the verge of tears. Because there are just, I don't know, I just get overwhelmed with emotion when it comes to gratitude, because there are so many people in my life who I am so deeply grateful for. And I was just so happy to see those folks on the, in the video make those connections too. And it just, then I get overwhelmed with emotion at how lucky and blessed I feel.
I absolutely have a Dr. Joe Murphy handwritten note that is stuck on my bulletin board where it's right behind my computer where I can see it every day. So yeah. Anybody else have other reactions? We have I was so sweet, I was about to cry. Any other thoughts about this? All right. So either unmuting or putting in the chat real briefly, who's someone that you're grateful for? You can give us a real kind of brief thing about it. So I'll start, because sometimes it's weird to break the ice, So I am super grateful for my best friend. We met in college. Her name is Katie. And we had the same really ugly watch. Like, you should never have owned this like Timex thing with a cloth band. It was a really, really ugly watch. And we met in the residence hall at orientation when I turned around to her and said, we have the same watch. And she was like, uh-huh. And then we ended up being best friends, roommates. She's still the person that, like, if I call her, she would jump on a plane, and she has jumped on a plane. So my freshman year, I was having if we look back at all of our higher education transitioning into college from high school issues, like all of them, like 1, 2, 3 was happening, all of them. I was not doing this transition very well. I hated everything. And friends were like, well, this is the best time of your life. How could you hate all this? This is so fantastic. I was like, it is. This is the best time right now, because I think this kind of bites. And she was the one that says, right now, this sucks. It's going to get better, but right now, this really bites, So I kind of replay that in my head whenever there's something that's going on. I'm like, okay, this sucks. I can just sit here and be in this suck for a little bit, but it's going to get better, So that's somebody who I'm super grateful for always. Anyone want to share another human being or dog that they're grateful for? Your partner. Partners are great because they hear all of the good and they see all of the bad. When we're not necessarily being our best selves, you're like, oh, and you still want me to be around. That's pretty incredible. I like it. And they still love us. Sometimes like, are you sure? Because right now I'm not being very lovable. And they do. It's awesome. Anyone else that we're grateful for?
Definitely grateful for parents, who I don't know, they work so hard all their life to, give me and my brother the things that they never could get growing up. So I just know that they're working hard. They've always worked hard, and I'm very grateful for everything they've done.
Yeah. So kind of your homework. Sorry, was somebody else unmuted? No. Okay. I'm also over Zoom and figuring out who wants to speak and who doesn't want to speak. So your homework that I'm never going to know if you do or not is to write them a letter, you know, and to the point of the soul pancake video and to Joe's point of like, there's nothing like a handwritten letter, write it and consider sending it, you know, because even if the person that you are grateful for, you can't send it for whatever reason, if they've passed, if they've moved, you don't know their phone number, whatever it is, because we know that being able to write a letter or write things down can help us feel better. And that's okay. That's a really good thing. Expressing gratitude and making us feel better in a way that's kind of simple. Doesn't cost any money. It's going to take you 2 seconds. Is something that can be really helpful. And for the people on the receiving end of the letter, I have every note that's been ever written to me from a student. So at some point a couple of years ago, I ran out of room. And so I had to put them in a folder and then put like the next batch up. I've got like this little hutch thing over my computer. And I read them when I'm having a bad day. When I was like, hey, nothing that I'm doing is working. Nobody's showing up to the event. So they're not understanding what I'm trying to say, blah, 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 blah. And there's been days where I've read them over and over and over again. And it helps. And it's something small that helps. So both expressing gratitude and receiving gratitude is something that's so small that has such a big impact on our well-being. Questions, comments, thoughtful thoughts as we're talking more about gratitude. And then Eric's saying that he does the same thing with those letters. You know, you hang on to them, you read them. I flag emails, you know, I flag text messages for the things when you're like, I am not being effective, because we all have our days. We can all think that we're really wonderful humans and all have our days where we're like, but what if I'm not? And it's nice to have that external validation sometimes. Any other questions, comments about gratitude, soul pancake, literally anything in the world before we move on today? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can actually see people's faces. Hey, look, there you are. Any other questions, comments, thoughtful thoughts? Awesome. I very much appreciate everybody's time. I'd like to express my gratitude for you guys for coming out to a virtual event when we are all way zoomed out. You know, I appreciate you being at a virtual event at 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, I am appreciative of the fact that we can all do this safely from wherever it is that we are. And appreciative of the fact that as we start to kind of move forward, hopefully we will be moving past the virtual event situation and start to move a little bit more in person. I gave someone like a first high five yesterday and it felt weird, you know? So I have a colleague who like every day we would give each other a high five. Noah, it's Noah. Every day, high five, you know? And so I'm just grateful for the fact I was like, can I give you a high five? Like, is this an okay thing that we're doing? He's like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, awesome. So I was just grateful for a little high five. It felt good. You know, so kind of going through your day today, thinking of the little things, your little wins that you're grateful for. There doesn't have to be a huge world of things. And then consider sending a note to somebody. They'll like it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely day.
Thank you so much, Allie, for presenting for us. Just a couple of things before everybody hops off. So remember that you can check back to the website to sign up for more sessions. I'm going to drop that link in the chat, just easy access. We also do have in-person activities on the intramural field today from 2 to 4. So if anybody's interested in those. And then again, you can always return to Row and Thrive website to learn more about the various dimensions of well-being and all of the resources available to you. So there are those links in the chat. And thank you guys all so much for participating. And we hope to see you in more sessions soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for hosting, Kristen.
Of course. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye. Take care.